The house that silence built. The fork stopped halfway to my mouth when my father said it. You'll sign the deed over to Randy by the end of the week. Not a question, not a request. A statement of fact, delivered between bites of the pot roast I'd spent 3 hours preparing. Around my parents' dining table, the one I'd grown up being told to keep my elbows off of, the air turned to glass. My mother dabbed her lips with a napkin, that practiced gesture of dismissal I'd seen 1,000 times. It's only fair, sweetheart. Randy needs a place for his new family. You're just one person. Just one person? 28 years of my life summarized in 3 words? I set down my fork carefully, watching it settle against the china with the soft click that somehow felt thunderous. My brother Randy sat across from me, his fiancée Melissa beside him, both wearing expressions I'd seen before, entitled expectation wrapped in a thin veneer of familial concern. "The house is mine," I said quietly. The words felt strange in my mouth. Defiance had never been my language. I'd spoken fluent compliance my whole life, fluent invisibility, fluent second place. My father's jaw tightened. "Don't be difficult, Claire. That house has been in the family for 60 years. Your grandfather meant for it to stay in the family name. My name is a family name." The sentence hung there, simple and devastating. I watched my mother's face cycle through surprise, then irritation, then that particular brand of disappointment she'd perfected specifically for me. "Claire," she said my name the way you'd say, "foolish child. That house is falling apart. You've been playing handyman for 2 years now, wasting money on renovations when Randy could actually—" "I'm not playing," I interrupted, and the shock of cutting her off sent a tremor through my hands. I spent 18 months rebuilding that foundation. I rewired the entire second floor. I restored the original hardwood. I replaced every window. That house was condemned and I saved it. With family money, my father said. There it was, the real knife, sliding between my ribs with surgical precision. With my money. From my trust fund, the one Grandpa left me. Randy shifted in his seat. It was slight, barely noticeable, but I'd spent a lifetime reading the microscopic tells of my family's discomfort. Melissa's hand found his under the table. "Trust fund money is still family money," my mother said, her voice taking on that edge that used to send me scurrying to my room. "And family means we help each other. Randy's starting his life, Claire. He has a fiancé, a real career. I have a career. You draw pictures for greeting cards," my father said, and the contempt in his voice was so familiar it almost didn't hurt anymore. Almost. "I'm a graphic designer with my own clients and a growing portfolio, but that's not the point. The point is you'll sign over the deed." My father's hand came down on the table. Not quite a slam, but close enough. "Or we'll be forced to take legal action." The rule went still. Legal action. Against their own daughter? For a house I'd bought with my own inheritance, that I'd rebuilt with my own hands and money? That I'd turned from a rotting disaster into a home? I looked at each of them in turn. My father, red-faced and righteous. My mother, cold and certain. Randy, uncomfortable but silent. Melissa, embarrassed but complicit. "No," I said. One word, 2 letters, a revolution. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "Thank you for dinner." I walked out of that house, my childhood prison, and drove back to mine, the one that smelled like fresh paint and sawdust, the one with the crooked porch steps I'd learned to fix from YouTube videos, the one where every nail I'd hammered had driven a tiny bit more of their voices out of my head. That night, I didn't sleep. I paced my living room, my footsteps echoing on the floors I'd sanded smooth, and I waited for the fear to come. The old, familiar fear that had always made me fold. But it didn't come. Something else did. Something that felt like anger, but colder. The call came Friday morning at 9 a.m. sharp. My father's timing had always been impeccable. calculated to catch you before you'd armored yourself for the day. Claire, we need to talk about this situation. Situation. As if my refusal to hand over my house was a weather pattern, something temporary and unreasonable. There's nothing to talk about, I said, stirring sugar into my coffee. I was standing in my kitchen, with a subway tile backsplash I'd installed myself, with the vintage light fixtures I'd hunted down in antique shops, and I felt steadier than I had in years. You have until end of business today to reconsider. Or what? The question surprised both of us. I could hear it in the pause that followed, in the slight intake of his breath. Or what wasn't a question I asked. Or what was for people who didn't automatically capitulate. Or our lawyer files papers Monday morning. Fraud, misuse of family funds, breach of fiduciary duty. Don't make this ugly, Claire. My hand tightened on the mug. I'm not the one making it ugly. That money was meant for the family, for when you got married, started a real life. Instead, you poured it into a money pit that should have been torn down. You're not thinking clearly. 28 years. 28 years of them telling me what I thought, what I felt, what I was capable of. 28 years of Randy getting the birthday parties while I got the birthday dinners. Randy getting the college fund while I got the community college suggestion. Randy getting the pride while I got the, well, at least you tried. I need to go, I said. Claire, I hung up. My hands were shaking. I set down the coffee mug before I dropped it, pressed my palms flat against the counter I'd refinished, and breathed. Then I called the one person I'd been avoiding calling, because calling her would make this real. Julia Morrison, attorney at law. Julia, it's Claire. Claire Hartwell. Claire, how's the house? Did you finally finish that bathroom tile? We'd met at a home improvement workshop 6 months ago, bonded over our shared frustration with grout sealer. She'd given me her card, told me to call if I ever needed legal help. I'd tucked it in my wallet and tried to forget about it. The tile's done, but I need a different kind of help now. I told her everything. The dinner, the demand, the threats. When I finished, there was a long pause. Then, Julia laughed. It wasn't a polite laugh or a sympathetic laugh. It was genuine, delighted amusement. I'm sorry, she said, still chuckling. I'm sorry, that's unprofessional, but your parents are threatening to sue you for, let me make sure I have this right, for using your own inheritance money that was legally left to you to purchase and renovate a property that you own outright. When she said it like that, it did sound absurd. Yes, Claire, honey, they don't have a case. They don't have the shadow of a case. They have the memory of a case they once saw on TV. Something in my chest loosened. You're sure? I'm sure. But here's what I'm not sure about. And this is where you need to think carefully. Do you want to just defend yourself, or do you want to go on offense? What do you mean? I mean, if they're threatening legal action, maybe we should take a closer look at their finances. Your trust fund was set up when you were born, right? Managed by your parents until you turned 21? Yes, but I didn't access it until I was 25. They said it needed to mature, that the investments… Claire, a trust fund doesn't need to mature. That's not a thing. How much was supposed to be in there? I told her the amount my grandfather had told me about when I was 16, right before he died, $150,000. Julia was quiet for a long moment. And how much did you actually get? $82,000. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Claire, I think we need to meet today. Bring any paperwork you have about that trust fund, any correspondence with your parents about it, any banking statements. Can you do that? Yes. Good. Because I think your parents are about to discover that threatening lawsuits is a very dangerous game when you have things to hide. Julia's office was in a converted Victorian downtown. all exposed brick and modern glass. She met me at the door with coffee and a yellow legal pad already covered in notes. "Okay," she said, settling into her chair. "Let's start with what they might actually try to file, and then we'll talk about what we're going to file first." First? Her smile was sharp. "Claire, in law, in life, sometimes the best defense is a good offense. Now, walk me through the timeline." I did. I told her about being 7 and watching Randy get the big birthday party with a bouncy castle while I got dinner at the local diner. About being 12 and overhearing my parents tell relatives that Randy was gifted while I was finding my way. About being 17 and having my college applications intercepted because state school would be fine for someone with your grades. I told her about my grandfather pulling me aside at a family dinner, his weathered hands folding over mine. "Don't let them make you small, Claire Bear. There's money for you, money that's yours alone. When the time comes, use it to build something they can't take away." He died 3 months later. When I turned 21, I asked about the trust fund. My mother had gotten that pinched look she wore when money was discussed. "It's not ready yet. The market's down. You don't understand these things." I waited. I worked retail jobs and freelance design work and lived in a studio apartment with 3 roommates. I waited because waiting was what I'd learned to do. When I was 25, I insisted. My father had handed me a check for $82,000 and told me I should be grateful, that the investments hadn't performed as expected, that I was lucky to get what I did. I'd believed him. I'd taken the money, found the condemned house at auction, and poured everything into making it mine. Julia's pen moved across the legal pad. "Did you ever see statements? Account documents?" "No. They said it was too complicated, that I wouldn't understand the paperwork." "And Randy, did he have a trust fund?" "I don't know. I assume so." "Here's what we're going to do. We're going to file a demand for full accounting of that trust fund. Every transaction, every fee, every disbursement. We're going to get court orders for bank records. And I'm willing to bet we're going to find some very interesting discrepancies. But what if..." I stopped. What if I was wrong? What if I was being ungrateful? What if this was just me being difficult, like my mother always said? Julia leaned forward. "Claire, let me tell you something. I've been practicing law for 15 years. I've seen a lot of financial abuse in families. And you know what the common thread is? The victims always think they're the problem. They always think if they just tried harder, understood better, were more grateful, things would be different. But here's the truth. People who are managing your money ethically don't dodge questions. They don't refuse to show you paperwork. They don't hand you a check for half what you were promised and tell you to be grateful." My eyes burned. I blinked hard. "So here's my question for you. Do you want to just seep your house, or do you want the truth?" I thought about my grandfather's hands on mine. Build something they can't take away. I want the truth. Then let's get to work. We spent 6 hours in that office. Julia made calls, sent emails, pulled up legal databases. She showed me things I should have seen years ago, asked questions I should have asked. "Your grandfather's will is public record," she said, pulling it up on her computer. "Let's see what it actually says." We read it together. My grandfather had left clear instructions: $150,000 in trust for Claire Hartwell, to be managed until age 21, then transferred in full with all accrued interest. No conditions, no requirements. No vague language about family needs or parental discretion. With interest, Julia said softly. "Claire, over 25 years, even with conservative investments, that should have been close to $300,000. The number hung in the air between us. $300,000. I'd gotten $82,000. Where's the rest? My voice didn't sound like mine. That's what we're going to find out. But I need you to prepare yourself. The answer might be ugly." She started pulling financial records, using the legal tools at her disposal. Within 2 hours, a picture began to emerge. Withdrawals from my trust fund. Dozens of them. Payments to my parents' mortgage. Randy's college tuition, his car, his MBA program. My money used to build Randy's life while I worked retail and wondered why I wasn't good enough. Oh, Claire, Julia breathed, staring at the screen. This is bad. This is fraud. This is... She looked up at me. This is criminal. I couldn't speak. I stared at the numbers, the dates, the systematic theft of my future. 25 years of withdrawals. 25 years of my parents spending my grandfather's gift to me on my brother. They gave him my college fund, I whispered. They gave him your everything, Julia corrected. And then they had the audacity to threaten you with legal action when you wouldn't give him your house, too. Something inside me cracked. Not broke, cracked. Like ice in spring, making way for something underneath. What do? Julia's smile was fierce. We file first, Monday morning, before they have a chance. We're going for full accounting, return of stolen funds, and damages, interest. And Claire, we're gonna file a criminal complaint too. What they did wasn't just wrong, it was theft. They're my parents. They're thieves who happen to be your parents. There's a difference. I thought about every time they'd made me feel small. Every time they'd suggested I wasn't trying hard enough, wasn't smart enough, wasn't enough, while they were spending my money on Randy's success story. File it all, I said. The papers were served Tuesday morning. I didn't watch, Julia handled it, but I got the text from Randy at 10:37 a.m. What the fuck, Claire? Then my mother called. I let it go to voicemail. Then my father. Same. By lunch, I had 17 missed calls and a text from Melissa asking if I'd lost my mind. Julia called at 2. They've lawyered up. Pearson and Mitch, decent firm. Their attorney called me, suggested we could work this out like adults. What did you tell him? I told him to review the evidence we've attached to our filing and get back to me when his clients are ready to discuss returning the $218,000 they stole, plus interest and penalties. $218,000? Conservative estimate. Could be more once we get all the records. How are you holding up? I looked around my living room, at the built-in bookshelves I'd installed, at the fireplace I'd restored, at the window seat where I drank my coffee every morning. I'm good, I said, and I meant it. The week that followed was surreal. My parents tried everything. First came the phone calls I didn't answer. Then the emails. Long, rambling things about family loyalty and how hurt they were and how I could do this to them. Then Aunt Marie called, and Uncle Robert, and family friends I hadn't spoken to in years, all concerned about the misunderstanding. I blocked them all. Julia had been clear. No contact. Everything goes through me. They're going to try to manipulate you, gaslight you, make you doubt yourself. Don't give them the chance. Randy tried a different approach. He showed up at my house on Thursday evening, looking haggard. I watched him through the peephole, this stranger who was my brother. Then I called Julia. He's at your door? She asked. Yes. Don't open it. I'm calling the police for a trespass warning. Julia. Claire, he's there to intimidate you or guilt you into dropping this. Don't let him. I watched Randy through the peephole for 5 more minutes before he left. The relief I felt when his car pulled away told me everything I needed to know. The formal accounting came back 2 weeks later. Julia called me to her office, her expression serious. Sit down, she said. I sat. It's worse than we thought. The total is $267,000. That's what should have been in your trust fund when you accessed it. They withdrew systematically over 15 years. Randy's college, Randy's car, Randy's wedding to his first wife. Did you know he was married before? No. Well, your money paid for that wedding, and the divorce lawyer after. His business ventures that failed, the down payment on your parents' second home. Your money, Claire. All of it. I stared at the papers she slid across the desk. Pages of transactions, each one a small theft, adding up to the wholesale looting of my future. But here's where it gets interesting, Julia continued. Your parents didn't just steal from you. They lied about it on tax documents. They falsified trust fund statements. They committed wire fraud, tax fraud, and financial elder abuse of your grandfather's estate intentions. The criminal implications are significant. What does that mean? It means they could go to jail. The words sat between us. My parents, in jail, for stealing from me? What do you want to do? Julia asked gently. I thought about my whole life. Every time I'd been told I was too sensitive. Every time I'd been told I was imagining things. Every time I'd been made to feel crazy for feeling overlooked. I thought about my grandfather, who'd tried to give me a safety net, only to have his own daughter cut the cords. I thought about Randy, who'd built his entire life on my stolen foundation and never questioned whether he deserved it. I want them to know I know, I said finally. I want them to sit with what they did, and I want my money back. Julia nodded. Then here's what we do. We called a family meeting, Julia's idea, and a brilliant one. Let them think you're willing to negotiate. Let them come to the table thinking they can talk you down. Then we lay out everything. My mother arranged it, of course. Sunday dinner at their house to discuss this terrible misunderstanding, she'd said in her email, her only successful contact in 3 weeks. I almost said no. The thought of sitting at that table again made my stomach turn. But Julia was firm. Trust me, this will be worth it. So I went, but not alone. Julia came with me carrying a briefcase and wearing an expression that suggested she was looking forward to this. They were all there. Mom and Dad at the head of the table, Randy and Melissa sitting together trying to project a united front. The table was set with the good china. This was a celebration instead of a reckoning. Claire, my mother said, her voice dripping with wounded dignity, I'm glad you came to your senses. We can fix this misunderstanding, put it all behind us. This isn't a misunderstanding, Julia said, setting her briefcase on the table with a thump. This is a theft, and we're here to discuss restitution. My father's face went red. Now, see here. No, you see here. Julia opened the briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. She spread them across the table, right on top of the china. Full accounting of Claire's trust fund. Every withdrawal, every falsified statement, every lie you told her about why she was only getting a fraction of what her grandfather left her. The room went silent. I watched my mother's face drain of color as she stared at the papers. You stole $267,000 from your daughter, Julia continued, her voice calm and professional. You used it to fund your son's life while she worked retail jobs and lived in poverty. You committed fraud, tax evasion, and financial abuse. And then, and this is my favorite part, you threatened to sue her when she wouldn't give him his house too. That money was for the family, my mother whispered. No, I said, and my voice was steady. That money was for me. Grandpa was clear. You just decided Randy mattered more. Randy slumped in his chair. I didn't know. Claire, I swear, I didn't know it was your money. Didn't you? I looked at him, really looked at him. You never wondered why you got everything while I got nothing? You never questioned it? He had no answer. Melissa was staring at the documents, her face white. She turned to Randy slowly. You told me your parents paid for your MBA. They did. With your sister's stolen inheritance. She stood up, pulling off her engagement ring and setting it on the table with a small, decisive click. I can't be part of this. She left. Just walked out. Randy stared after her, stunned. You've ruined this family, my mother said, but her voice shook. You've destroyed us over money. You destroyed yourselves. Claire is giving you one chance to make this right. You return the full amount, $267,000 plus interest and penalties, total of $385,000 within 90 days, and will agree to drop the criminal complaint. Or we proceed with everything. Civil suit, criminal charges, the whole deal. Your choice. My father found his voice. That's extortion. No, that's justice. And frankly, you're lucky Claire is being this generous. She could take you for everything. She could put you in jail. Instead, she's giving you a chance to do the right thing. Finally. I stood up. I don't need to hear your answer now. You have 48 hours to decide. After that, the criminal complaint gets filed and the offer expires. I walked out of that house for the second time. But this time, Julia walked with me. And this time, I didn't look back. They settled. Of course they settled. Julia had been right. When people have that much to hide, they'll do anything to keep it buried. The agreement came through their lawyer 46 hours later. Full restitution, payment plan, confidentiality clause. They couldn't afford to pay it all at once, but they'd liquidate assets, downsize, sell the second home. Randy moved out. I heard through the family grapevine that he was living in a condo, working 2 jobs to cover his expenses now that the Bank of Clare was closed. Melissa never came back. My parents didn't apologize. The settlement came with a terse letter from their lawyer about unfortunate misunderstandings and family complexities, but no admission of guilt, no acknowledgement of what they'd done. I didn't need it. The money that started appearing in my account every month was acknowledgement enough. I paid off my house, put the rest in investments, started taking bigger design clients, began teaching workshops on historic home restoration. Turned out I was actually good at it. Julia became a real friend. We met for coffee every few weeks, and she never once said, "I told you so," even though she had every right. The house became exactly what my grandfather intended, something they couldn't take away. A year later, I was stripping wallpaper in what would become my home office when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Julia had a key. My actual friends knew to text first. I opened the door to find my mother standing on my porch. She looked older, smaller somehow. Or maybe I'd just gotten bigger. "Claire," she said, "may I come in?" Every instinct I had screamed no. This was my space, my sanctuary, the place I'd built from nothing. But curiosity won. 15 minutes, I said. She followed me into the living room, taking in the restored moldings, the refinished floors, the built-in shelves full of my design books. Her eyes lingered on the photo wall, pictures of me at various stages of restoration, covered in paint and sawdust, smiling. "You've done beautiful work," she said softly. "Thank you." An awkward pause. She perched on the edge of my couch like a nervous bird. "I'm not here to ask for anything. I needed you to know I see it now. What we did." I waited. I'd learned the power of silence. You were always so quiet, so easy. Randy was loud, demanding. He needed so much attention. And I think we told ourselves that meant you needed less, that you were fine. But you weren't fine. You were just invisible. Her voice cracked. "We made you invisible." "Yes," I said. "You did. I'm sorry." 2 words, 28 years too late. "I don't forgive you," I said, and watched her flinch. "Maybe someday, but not today. Not yet." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand, but I don't hate you either. I need you to stay away until I'm ready. If I'm ever ready." "Of course." She stood to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, your grandfather would be proud of you, of this house, of the woman you've become." She left. I watched her car pull away, then walked through my house, room by room. Every corner I'd rebuilt, every surface I'd refinished, every nail I'd driven. My house, my life, my terms. I poured a glass of wine and sat on my porch steps, the ones I'd fixed myself, and watched the sunset paint my windows gold. Somewhere, in some reality, I'd signed over the deed like they demanded. I'd stayed small, stayed quiet, stayed invisible. But not in this one. In this one, I'd built a house, and in building it, I'd built myself. The phone buzzed. A text from Julia. "Dinner tomorrow? I'll bring wine." I smiled and typed back. "Only if you help me pick out paint for the office." "Deal. You're thinking that sage green, aren't you?" "How did you know?" "Because you have excellent taste, and you always have. Some people just needed to stop talking long enough for you to realize it." I looked at my house, solid and real in the fading light. Every beam I'd replaced had made it stronger. Every window I'd restored had let in more light. Every hour I'd invested had been worth it. They'd tried to take it. They'd tried to take everything. But some things, once you truly build them, can't be stolen. Not the house. And not anymore. Never again. Me. I went inside, closed the door, and locked it. My door, my lock, my choice. The house settled around me with small creaks and sighs, the sounds of a structure that had weathered storms and survived. A house that had almost been torn down, dismissed as worthless, too broken to save. Funny how wrong people can be about foundations. Funny how strong things become when they're rebuilt right. Funny how the one they said wasn't worth it turned out to be the only one standing when the dust cleared. I climbed the stairs I'd rebuilt myself, walked into the bedroom I'd designed, and slept in the bed I'd earned. And for the first time in 28 years, I didn't dream of being someone else, somewhere else, anything else. I dreamed of home.